Oh my goodness.
Yeah, massive congratulations to both Leonardo and Jonathan for what a spectacle of matches we've had, and huge congratulations to Jonathan for actually being our Players Cup 3 champion and with the only Kyogre in Global Finals, Lou.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, we have talked the whole tournament through about Sun, and then Kyogre just comes in and goes, what about Sun? Let's talk about me. I am now the Players Cup 3 champion. And it's just amazing to see that story being built, particularly as Jonathan had such a great run through Global Finals, and then he faced down against Leonardo and was knocked down to the losers bracket, and then was able to come back, get that kind of revenge against his opponent and take the champion title. And you know, what an epic series of matches that both these players have been able to give us today. I just want to thank them so much for giving us amazing competitive Pokemon play.
Yeah, I just have to second everything you said there, Lou. I mean, you know, we can't say thank you enough to our players. All of our players that have competed in Players Cup, it's been phenomenal. But that final, we couldn't have asked for anything better, you know, going right down to that final game. It's what we want as viewers, as commentators, casters, you know, it's what we want to see as really players, you know, going at it right until that final turn, which that was, you know. You know, if the Groudon survives there, the Precipice Blades hit, then the Kyogre goes down. But, you know, just it shows how powerful Kyogre is, you know, even in the sun, able to get that knockout onto the Groudon. Just far too much for it to deal with. And a really nice call from Jonathan to actually integrate that into his team building and making use of not just sun, but the rain and the sun, and having both of those weathers there just really paying off for him and paying dividends in this final especially.
Yeah, the versatility on that team building was amazing. And also, let's go North America. They've been able to take, you know, Players Cup 1, 2 and 3 titles. It looks like there's no stopping our North American players. And I think it's time to bring Jonathan in and have a little bit of a chat with our Players Cup 3 champion. I am delighted to be joined by our Pokemon Players Cup 3 champion, Jonathan Evans. Huge congratulations on winning the champion title. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you, but first of all, how does it feel to be the champion?
It feels really good. I've played Pokemon for a really long time, and I never won anything bigger than an MSS, than a mid-season showdown. Yeah, no, so I would always get really close, and I've never won anything, and this feels really good to win. You know, I kind of had that sinking suspicion that I was going to get second for a really long time there. But I'm really happy I clutched it out.
Yeah, and it was certainly a very intense sort of series of matches that you played. And I kind of want to scroll right back down to the first time you encountered Leonardo today in those sort of winners finals, because it started out very intense. You had your 2-0 victory, and then Leonardo was just able to come back and reverse sweep against you. And I just kind of want to gather your thoughts throughout that set, because you didn't make too many adjustments compared to how you played later on in the tournament. So I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts about how you approached that particular game in sort of winners finals.
Yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated about that one. I think my team's matchup is pretty good into Leonardo's team, even with just the play. Well, maybe not considering the plans he developed later on, but just like from a standard best of 3, we haven't really played too much before standpoint. I think my matchup's pretty good, and part of it's just that I just click the yawn, and I'm just gonna wake up. I've actually been a very long proponent of the idea that the best counterplay to getting put to sleep is just waking up, and it is. It really is. It just doesn't always work.
It's a bit of a dice roll.
Yeah, and so I decided that just one time. My Torkoal wouldn't get 2 turns slept, or my Venusaur wouldn't sleep, all the time, and it didn't happen. So I kind of just tunnel visioned into the game plan I thought of that I knew was in general pretty good, and I just decided that it was going to work, and it didn't.
I mean, fortunately for us, we got to see so many different variations of your team, and there were sort of adjustments from both you and Leonardo throughout the 14 games that you were able to play today. Obviously, Leonardo was able to beat you in the winners finals, and then you dropped down to the losers bracket, and then came back up into having to reset the bracket, which was amazing. And then if we look at that final best of 5 set, in game 4, where you were that game down, things looked a little bit difficult for you, but fortunately towards the end you were able to get your Kyogre up in Tailwind. But when I was talking to some of my fellow casters, we all just kind of wanted to know how you approached that game 4, because it certainly looked like you were at a disadvantage a little bit at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I was honestly just lucky to have a game 4 in the first place. Game 2 is the game that comes to mind because I remember feeling very certain that I had lost. And then an EV spread adjustment that I had made just before the tournament came in massively clutch. So before the tournament, a few nights before, I was thinking about what my Venusaur speed stat should be. And at the regional finals, I had run 121 speed Venusaur because I had heard that a number of people were running 120 speed on their were hitting 120 speed stat on their Pokemon.
Okay.
But I thought about it a little bit more, and I decided that that it would be worth giving up a little bit of bulk and a little bit of damage in order to outspeed +1 Charizard and Zapdos. While my Venusaurs and Sun are in the Tailwind. And Leonardo didn't account for that and let his Charizard get sleep powdered, which let me steal a game. So I was very happy to just be in a game 4 in the first place. But this was the first time I'd actually been down in down 2-1 in a series on match point. And I decided that I didn't really know what would beat the Venusaur Charizard lead. I was just super confused. I guess, in retrospect, there were some options I had that could have, I didn't know how to beat the Venusaur Charizard lead without making reads, that is. And so I thought, well, maybe a good idea would be to set up Light Screen, and my Venusaur will take attacks from the Charizard better, and I'll be able to get up the Vine Lash, and I'll be able to stall through the Charizard's max. Then once the max is done, I can get up the Tailwind and then have my Tornadus beat the Venusaur. But I also, and so I was like, okay, I'll go for this Light Screen line. But I also thought that Grimmsnarl would be really good because of the Sucker Punch.
Yeah, it was
Sucker
great
Punch,
to see it.
It was so, it was so nice. No one really thinks about Grimmsnarl's attack stat, but it's really very strong physically and allowed me to get that extra chip. And dodging the Sleep Powder turn 1 was lucky, but after that, Grimmsnarl, really put in the work and got the extra chip I needed on all the Pokemon. I was planning that in advance, but I was just not feeling super hopeful heading into this one. I was just focused in and, hoping I had something.
Yeah, I mean, Lee and I talked a little bit about how difficult that lead is against Venusaur and Charizard, because it's a bit of a, like you said, you've got to make a read, because it's an awkward 50-50 depending on what Leonardo wants to go through in terms of maybe Gigantamax Pokemon. But it's really great to hear kind of the way you methodically team built coming into this and kind of all the options and variables you've considered. And one Pokemon we have to talk about, and I've kind of got 2 questions about Kyogre to present to you, is first of all, how confident were you that the Kyogre was going to be able to pick up the KO against Groudon at the end of that Game 5? And also, tell me why Kyogre. You were the only one running it in Global Finals in an absolute sea of Groudon in this tournament. Why was Kyogre the choice for you?
I was not very confident that I was going to pick up that knockout. I was so sure that I had lost.
It was so intense.
I was like, really frustrated. I was like, oh man, I guess I'm getting second again. But I remembered I had actually played this team in regional finals. Paul Chua used this team against me, and I had a very interesting moment against him where I had taken a turn of Wildfire Chip, same as I had in this game. But the Groudon was at full, and it was still single target and still in the sun. And I did around 95% to that Groudon with Water Spout, with a single target Water Spout in the sun. And
okay,
so
big damage.
And this Groudon had taken and so that Groudon was at full, but this Groudon had taken a turn of Vine Lash Chip. So that means it's at 82%. So I was actually as I went for it, I was like, oh, there's actually a pretty decent chance that I get this knockout. There's it's very likely that it was a damage roll, and I have no idea what the roll was. I'm just really grateful that my Kyogre came through for me. In terms of why I picked Kyogre, there are a couple of factors. So first, I don't think many Kyogre teams are particularly good in the metagame right now.
Okay, interesting.
But I really liked my Kyogre team. I thought, as I showed in my losers finals match and my plan at the start of the winners finals match, at least in best of 3, I thought I had a really good matchup against the standard Sun teams. I have max special defense on my Torkoal, which means it can take a ton from Venusaur and dish out the Yawn right back, and doesn't worry about it at all. So I thought that my matchup into these Sun teams was pretty favorable. Most Kyogre teams don't have Venusaur, so I think that they find themselves like a little bit unfavored into these Charizard teams or into some of the Zacian teams. They're just a little bit inconsistent for me. So in general, I'm not a huge fan of Kyogre in the metagame right now. But I also, but when I was looking at the, so I looked at the teams that had qualified for the tournament. I saw some of the results from the other regions, and I looked at all the 16 teams. And there were 4 Sun teams, there were 4 Colossal teams, there were 3 Ghost Rider teams, 2 Ice Rider teams, and like a Solgaleo.
Yeah.
And so I thought that, and so I looked at my matchup spread, and I thought it was actually really good. I thought I was favored into all the Sun teams. I put Incineroar on my team to make myself more favored into the Colossal teams.
Incineroar was great choice as well.
Yeah, no, I didn't even face any Colossal teams, and Incineroar came in clutch through the whole tournament.
It was great. We loved seeing it, particularly when it could like go for those parting shots and negate some of the damage from the opposing sort of Charizard as well. It just worked so well. Unfortunately, Jonathan, I've only got time for one more question, and it's one that is kind of a unique experience, and I want to see if you can provide a little bit of context for our viewers back home. In this double elimination, you had to play Leonardo 14 times, and not only did you start very well going 2-0 and then obviously losing that first game, having to drop to losers bracket and grind back up, reset the bracket, and then obviously win out the tournament. How do you approach that mentally?
It was a little bit rough. So I was not expecting to lose the first set. And so, in fact, going into the first set, going into losers finals, I was very frustrated. That first game of losers finals was not very lucky, and so I was just, banging my head into my hands, like, of course, I'm gonna get unlucky again.
You got to kind of
this is the same thing. It's gonna happen to me. And winning that match didn't make it entirely better, because I, was just like, this is how it's supposed to go. Like, I was supposed to win the last series, and instead I got luck. But we had a bit of time to cool down after that, because there was time set aside for interviews. So I had like an hour or so to think about the matchup and calm down, get something to eat, and really figure out if I knew what I was doing. And so even when I went into the interview, I thought I was going to bring Torkoal into the matchup, but I thought about my game plans a little more, because I wasn't really used to bringing Incineroar. I had added it a few days ago. I settled down. I was like, okay, this whole let my Venusaur go to sleep thing is definitely a mistake. I should not do that.
I need plan B.
I need plan B. I need to do something else to fight this Venusaur and Umbreon. And so I got the idea for the Incineroar lead, because if you don't bring Torkoal, then Charizard's not as scary, and so you don't need Yawn as much, and Venusaur is still really good into the opposing. Incineroar is still really good into the opposing Venusaur, especially with those safety goggles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard adjustment for you to do when you sort of drop down, but the fact that you had that time to regroup and obviously get a plan B that worked, you did it. You got to become the champion, was amazing for us to be able to see. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for taking the time to talk with us. I know the viewers at home will have really appreciated the insight into your team and the way you methodically approach this, and it was an absolute honour to be able to cast your games. They were so enjoyable. So congratulations.
I had a lot of fun playing them, and I'm glad you got to cast them. I'm excited to watch the stream.
Well, it's a win-win. I think everyone was happy at the end of that. So thank you so much. Congratulations once again. For everyone else on the broadcast, I'm going to join my fellow casters, and we're going to catch up with Aaron, Sierra and Lee to round out the broadcast.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Lee, and I have the pleasure.